Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again. As always, I am Jay, the one who is not cool enough to have his own code name yet. And we are checking in once again with the Energon Universe with the beginning of the next sort of arc of the series with the first issue of the Cobra Commander book. As always, written by Joshua Williamson with Andrea Milana on art. So I'm really glad that the Energon Universe is finally starting to open up. I, of course, am skipping issue 4 of Transformers. I know that came out, I think, last week or around the same time as this issue did, but I'm trying to be a good little reader and only read the physical issues, so I actually haven't gotten a copy yet, so I'm, for now, skipping it. I know it's got digital copies and everything, but I just like having a physical copy to read it, so if it doesn't come in sometime next week, I'm probably just going to cave, do the digital copy, and put the review up around the same time, because I know the next issue of Duke is coming out next week, so I'll probably do those both at once. But for now, we're starting on to the next part of the G.I. Joe stuff with the Cobra Commander book. So as always, a quick plot recap. The issue opens up with the preview that we had seen that I had talked about previously, with Cobra Commander in the Arctic, going into that bar there, getting laughed at, and then going out, killing a guy, and stealing his ride. So that all plays out the same. And then where the book picks up from the preview, surprise, we're doing Cobra Law bullshit in this universe. So for those not familiar, Cobra Law was Cobra Commander's backstory in, I believe, the 80s G.I. Joe movie specifically. I mean, it kind of ties in with the show, obviously, but they never really mentioned it in the show, from what I remember. Which was a secret race of snake people that lived underground on Earth. So yeah, that's what we're going with for this comic, which is, alright, sure. You know what? Hey, we can make it work. So, Cobra Commander is the leader of some sort of scientists, army division type thing. They don't really make it clear. But he's like a scientist warrior type. So it opens up with his lab and his team of scientists being attacked by an angry mob because they don't go into too detail initially, but they have some sort of monstrosity in there. They've betrayed the ways of their people by bringing in some kind of forbidden stuff in there. So their base is getting sieged, and Cobra Commander is being Cobra Commander. But somebody accidentally sets off a bomb, blows them all up, and fucks up Cobra Commander's face. So that's our excuse for why Cobra Commander is going to be wearing the helmet. We see him wearing a version of it, which is gold with like a red face mask that you can kind of see through. But then he gets blown up, and we see him getting put back together in like a lab, and he's getting all sorts of shit injected into him, whatever. And in the following pages, we see the classic style helmet, the blue with the silver face mask, and he's got his face all bandaged up and stuff. So that's our excuse for why he's going to be wearing the helmet, which is nice. That's fair. I always like when there's a reason why he wears the helmet, and it's not just to be spooky and evil. So Cobra Commander, if he's better, gets brought to the leader of the people, Globulus, I think it's pronounced. I'm not familiar entirely. Where he's being sentenced to death. We find out the reason why everybody was pissed at him is because they were experimenting with technology. The Cobra Law people are all about like bioweapons and organic stuff, and he brought in machinery from the outside world, so they're gonna kill him for that. But after kicking the ass of the guys who were trying to kill him with not Insecticons, essentially, he's able to argue to get out of there, where he's basically like, look, our people are going to be falling apart if we keep being isolationists. I've got a plan. Just let me go, let me do my own thing, and everybody will work out in the end. Globulus agrees, and we see Cobra Commander stopping off at what's left of his lab. And we find out exactly what his plan is and what this monstrosity was, and as I correctly predicted, I and just about fucking everybody else, it turns out to be Megatron, and he's been reverse engineering Cybertronian tech in secret. We find out that he figured out what the fuck Energon is, and he knows that there are other Transformers on Earth, and his plan is to essentially reverse engineer Cybertronian tech to build his own army and take over Cobra Law, and then take over the world, because Cobra Commander. But also we find out that Megatron's not completely dead. We get a really nice looking panel of Megatron with one of his eyes ripped out, and he's just got this big fucking creepy grin staring at the reader, which is nice. And then the issue ends with him talking with some fucking guy that they sent with him. We have no idea who he is. He doesn't look like anybody from any other books. He's just some sort of generic guy, but he's one of the Cobra Law people in disguise with Cobra Commander. And the issue ends with him and this guy going off to begin the plans to begin the origins of Cobra, and the issue ends with a tease of the Dreadnoks for issue 2. So overall, a really good first issue. I really enjoyed this. Much like the Duke one, it's a very good setup to the character and doesn't really do a whole lot setting up for Cobra itself, which is fine. I like that they're taking it slow for the most part. In terms of characters, other than like the Cobra Lagoons, it's mostly Cobra Commander, and really actually nobody else that seems to matter. I mean, there are a couple original characters I think that show up. Again, they really only talked about the Cobra Law shit like once as far as I can remember, so if these are characters that appeared somewhere else, I'm not familiar. I really only know it from the 80s movie, and even that I only half remember. But I like Cobra Commander. He's immediately out of the gate, he's very Cobra Commander-y. He's very brutal. He's very dictatorial, I guess is the word to say it, because he's very much the classic style Cobra Commander. The first thing we see him do is kill one of his other scientists because they start panicking and trying to surrender. He's already got a pretty hefty body count in issue 1, which is nice. And of course, they're setting up him being a scheming backstabber type too, which is good. I really like that. They don't do a whole lot of his backstory, which is good. It's mostly just his setup into the plot. They say that he's not from Cobra Law, so he might be a human, he might be something else. We don't know yet, which is fine, and that leaves plenty of room to grow and explore. We can take some changes to stuff, which is nice. I like that. And I like the idea of the more tech-heavy stuff with the bioorganic stuff. I wonder if it's going to play in a little bit more later on. I don't know if they're going to have Cobra Commander do like half bioweapons and then cyborgs and stuff. It might be interesting. We'll see. But I really like him. It is very text-heavy. It is very plot-heavy, exposition-heavy in this issue. So there's not a whole lot that really happens. But I think that's fine. I think it's a nice contrast with Duke, where Duke was very action-oriented, but this tended to be more dialogue-focused, which is fine. Again, Cobra Commander's not really much of an action-y kind of guy. He never really has been, so I think that's fair contrast. I'm interested to see where the stuff with the Transformers is going to tie into all of this. I like this idea, but I don't know, I'm a little tiny bit worried. I'm wondering where it's going to go. I think it's a good idea, again, that they're tying everything into the Transformers early, but I don't know. It has the potential to get very messy depending on how things go, and depending on who takes over. Like, if Williamson stays on for a while, or Johnson stays on for a while, it depends on kind of who's writing and where things go from here. But so far, the setup is fine. It works, and it's giving a good excuse for everybody to do what they need to do, but I'm still getting warning signs of where things are going to go. So that's about it for like the actual plot and the substance. I like the tiny little bit with Megatron. It's very interesting. It's also going to set up a nice little rivalry, because I'm sure inevitably he's going to bust free and start doing his Megatron shit, and it's going to be very interesting kind of how they play it out. I'm going to assume they're never going to work together at any point, unless like big plot shit happens. So it's going to be fun having Megatron as like a rival to Cobra Commander and like an arch enemy opposite of Optimus Prime. I think that's going to be very interesting. Honestly, it could lead to a fun little Autobot Decepticon team up against Cobra. I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. Who knows? But that would be pretty fun. I like that idea of setting them up as rivals. Beyond that, not a whole lot really to say otherwise about the plot. I really enjoyed it. The art in this issue is really, really good. I really like the designs of Cobra Law. I really like just the overall aesthetic and the way everything looks. The color palette is really, really fucking good in this. It's got a very heavy emphasis on like blue and red tones. It's a lot of very heavy saturation of blue and red, much like, you know, Cobra tends to use pretty frequently, which is very interesting. I really like that. Very subtle about it too, for the most part. Like, it never really calls attention to that color contrast. Like, there's never really like any big symbolism kind of moment. So that's nice. I like that idea, and I like the art overall. I hope the artist on this stays for a while. I know some of the artists of the series, the overall universe, are getting shaken up. I know the artist on Transformers is changing in an issue or two, so that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But overall, yes, a very good, strong first issue for Cobra Commander. A nice new setup into the next phase of things, that I guess is the best way to put it. Next story arc. So we'll see. I'm hopeful for this still going strong. Yet to hit a point where I think there's any like downturn in terms of quality. I think it's consistently gone up in quality. It's consistently stayed as good as it is. But again, like I was saying with a couple of other issues, there are those little tiny warning signs of things that they could do that might torpedo this very early on. So I'm staying hopeful, and it's staying strong, but there are a couple of potential worrying signs. But overall, very strong issue. Very much recommend it. I will be back more than likely sometime next week or week and a half or so, whenever Duke comes out. And if I have Transformers or not, I'm going to do Transformers 4 next too, and inevitably get around to doing Void Rivals. I have been rather busy, unfortunately, and from what I've been hearing to people keeping up with Void Rivals, I mean, I've been still reading it, but it doesn't seem like it's got a whole lot of connection other than, like, the occasional appearance of, like, I know Shockwave showed up at one point, and I think the Quintessence showed up too. Quintessence? I've never fucking remembered how to pronounce it. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I know they've showed up, but beyond that, I don't know how heavily it's going to tie in beyond those kind of little moments. But either way, very good. Continuing this trend, very hopeful where things are going. That'll be all for me this time, and I will see you all in the next issue.